Hey everybody, Stu Smith here, along with my good friend Pat Bonus, and we are going to discuss on this Tactical Fitness Report habits. And we all have good ones, we all have bad ones, and some of these good ones we need to add some more good ones to. Some of the bad ones we need to stop doing, right? And because here's the problem: we get good at what we do, right? Whether that's good or bad, right? And we also get good at what we don't do. So you can get in a habit of, missing workouts, right? You miss 2 or 3 workouts a week. You get in the habit of that. Next thing you know, you're not working out at all, and it just snowballs. So habits have to be controlled. And real simply, it takes discipline to do it. So let's talk a little bit about some of the habits that we have, and maybe some techniques of helping people build good habits of what they need to do, and get rid of some old habits. So what do you got, Pat?
Well, you're an early riser, and
Yes.
my uncle who owns a garbage business, I think he's up at 3:30 every morning. If he goes on vacation, he doesn't sleep past 4 a.m. Right? So
Yeah.
that's that habit. Maybe one as he retires, he's going to want a break, but it's that, just like you said, you get good at what you do, right? And you get good at what you don't do. And, I think that by him doing that so repetitively, it becomes second nature,
Sure.
and I think that the early bird gets the worm is a great expression. If you're up
Sure.
and you're ready to go, you're charged. I think that, nutritional habits as well. I've really never had an issue with eating granola. Some people are like, oh, how do you eat that? Nuts and berries. And there's some granola I really enjoy. And so for me, nutritional habits, people think that I'm very stringent on I actually enjoy whole wheat bread and, things like that. And, enjoy my yogurt and my Cliff Bars. And
Yeah.
so for me, nutritional habits actually are a negative when I don't have that. And so like, when you become so habitual, when you change those habits, whether it's exercise, getting up early, nutritional, if those habits are impeded in any way, those foods aren't offered, the time is not offered for your exercising, you have a late night, out the night before for some, event that you have to go to, or some shift you have to take as a tactical athlete, you're doing the night shift. How can you adjust and how can you fluctuate within those habits?
Right. Yeah. I tell you what, I have been, a journey in life will lead you towards some good and bad habits. And, I've broken some bad habits. I've built some good habits over the years. And probably one of the best ways to do that is you have to be conscious. You got to be in the present all the time, right? Especially when you're trying to break a bad habit. You just have to be focused on, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. But instead of just constantly saying, no, 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 I'll, change it and I'll do this, right? So you can almost take a bad habit. Let's say you're trying to, on nutrition, you're trying to stop eating, I don't know, or drinking soda, right? So let's say you're just trying to stop drinking soda, right? So you have that craving for soda. Maybe it's just, you're just thirsty, try replacing it with water, right? If that doesn't work, try replacing it with something that has some caffeine in it, but it doesn't have all the other stuff in it. Maybe an unsweet tea or something, right? So depending on where you are, you can kind of start pulling away from those really bad habits of all the crap that's in soda and start, morphing it into something a little bit better. I will say this, though. One of the best ways to build a habit is to tie it into another habit, right? Let me give you an example of that, like especially for work stuff. Um, I will, at the end of the day, I'm on my phone and I will speak to text and email myself ideas that I have, right? I email it to myself, send it to myself. And one, it gets off my mind of thinking about it. And then I tie that into, what do I do every morning when I get to work. I check emails, right? So I tie that in there. It's already coming to me. It's printed out for me, and I fill in the rest of the blank and, finish the article, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's
that's a really good way to kind of build a new habit of efficiency. It's really, I'm still going to write the article, but it made it more efficient. And it also took that article from rolling in my head all night and keeping me awake or keeping me distracted. I was able to get it out and do it. And now that's just one way I do it with work, but you can apply the exact same thing to training as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. Keeping a journal, and actually writing out your workouts for the week is a good way. I used to do that all the time. I'm kind of so habitual. I know when I go to the pool, how far I'm swimming and,
Yep.
Whatever, but you're using a digital sticky note.
Yes.
When your idea and, whatever, my quotations and things like that, when I think of them, when they come into my mind, whether there's a situation, whatever, they're usually, they're I'm not trying to say that I'm on this level at all, but it's my cathartic way of let's break a negative habit and giving negative feedback, or let's gain perspective. Write it down when you think of it. And, exactly like you said, you get it off your chest in a way, you file it away and you put it there, and the thing is too, when you're looking at, habits, one way to increase good habits is, I don't want to quote a copyright, but just do it. Get out and do it. Get after it. And to me and some of the people that I know, soreness is good because it means you've worked. You've hit your muscles in a different way, but that's the way you start to build that good habit. If you haven't done a movement for a while, start hammering it. Go after it. You're going to be sore for a little while, but you work towards it. After week 2, you're not sore anymore. And when you're not sore anymore, that means you've built in a pretty good habit. And we've talked about that in other changes. But the number one way that I've found to change a negative habit is to educate yourself. So so many people think that you turn 21 and you're allowed to drink alcohol. And I'm not casting any judgment. That's not when I don't drink. But I stopped drinking when I was 23 because I was becoming a health educator in community health, and I started to realize about its toxicity levels and being toxic to the body and be counterproductive to metabolism, right? So I started to learn this stuff, and I'm like, well, I want to get up and do a workout, or I want abs, or I want this, or I want that, or I want to be able to run, or swim or bike. And I started to teach myself about why that habit was bad, why that was a negative habit. And so when we look at issues across the globe with negative habits that become, we can look at STDs, or STIs, sexually transmitted infections. If we educate populations on that, we can change that habit. So if you educate yourself on, well, I keep doing this over and over again, and I'm only getting 5 pull-ups.
Right.
Well, let's look at Stu Smith's video on the progression of fat grips, of negatives, of grip training. So I think that a good way to break habits is to, negative habits is to educate yourself, and to increase good habits is just like I said, get through it. There was a really funny episode on Seinfeld where Elaine kept eating cake every afternoon.
Okay.
Because they'd have birthday parties like every afternoon, and so she'd be getting cake, and then all of a sudden there was no birthday, and she was like on this she was like jonesing for sugar.
Oh,
she's
funny.
She's like, where? And she breaks into her boss's office and eats like cake from JFK's wedding and gets in trouble, right? But it's that this habit, kept happening, and her, her blood sugar and all that was low, and she was getting used to it. And there's another thing too in breaking habits is to ride it out a little bit. Educate yourself on smoking. That if you're smoking, if you can ride out the 4 days, or taper off, or use the Nicorette, it's 4 days that it takes for nicotine to get out of your system. So there are habits that you can ride out, and there's some habits that you can't. You may need help. I don't mean to say that,
right. Sure.
With that, but there are habits that you're in that if you ride out the discomfort for a day or two,
and it's tough. It takes some guts. It takes some discipline. You're going to feel crappy. You're going to maybe even be in pain, but you just got to distract yourself too from that. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and the filing away, that you said, as we talked about in an earlier podcast about name it and tame it, but also when you have an idea or a thought, um, that you want to do within your habits and you want to do it, I think it's good to file it away, because then when you have time, you can look at it and you can also correct it. You can say, oh, well, no, I can't do this Wednesdays. You can start to kind of supplement, what you can do within that day. You can start to look at what you have that day that are the uncontrollables, the meeting at 11, from 11 to 1:30, there's no go on exercise.
Yeah.
There's, whatever it may be. You're traveling, your kids have sports in the afternoon. That's a pizza night. Just, make sure that where the habits or the certain things that come into play can't be changed. And as a tactical athlete, I just saw something this morning that we've talked about is what are the key elements? What are the key habits that you need to have? And I think that also is blinding. I think that you have to have a certain level of foundational habits.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Because you can't have them all.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about too, it's a little complex. It's not as easy as just saying, hey, I need to build some good habits. I need to get rid of bad habits. There's a lot more layers to it. And what I mean by that is you have a good habit, but you're also fighting to not lose it, right? You have to do it in order to not lose it. What I mean by that is I work out at 6 a.m. every day, right? Whether I feel like it or not, I show up to that workout. Now, I may have a scheduled workout that is hardcore, but my body is telling me, hey, you didn't sleep worth a crap last night. You're really beat up. You need to turn this into mobility day or just, do some stretching. But what I did by showing up is I didn't lose that habit of showing up. Even though I've dropped it down a notch, shifted gears, downshifted, whatever you want to call it, and just took it a little bit easy, I didn't lose that habit. Because what can happen is you do that sleep in one day, turns into 2 days, turns into now you're not working out 5 days a week, you're working out 2 days a week, and it just kind of snowballs into that. But the same thing holds true for bad habits, right? We are trying to constantly get rid of bad habits, and they're wanting to come back. They're constantly wanting to come back, and you gotta fight that one. That unfortunately takes a little bit of discipline to do, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's portion control. I eat very healthy, right? I drink a lot of water. If I have probably too much caffeine, it's in the form of unsweet iced tea, right? There's no extra sugar in it. It's just a little bit extra caffeine. But I eat healthy, but I can, there's extra steak on the table. I'll get that extra round of steak. I'll get that extra chicken breast. I just added another 500 calories to a meal that I really didn't need to do. I could have saved it. Right.
Yeah.
So I have those kind of portion control issues sometimes that I know that I have to fight. And so when I lose weight, the best is I'm hitting all those portion controls 100%. One way to do that is, if that's an issue for you, is slow down. Right. A lot of us just eat too fast. Right. If you slow down your eating a little bit longer, and take it a little bit longer to eat, you'll find that it almost takes 20 minutes for your body to actually say, hey, I'm full.
Yep.
Right. So you could eat a ton of food in about 10 minutes, where if you spread that out over 20, you'll probably eat about, 75% of that. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, it's just,
well, I have a similar thing, with waste for nutrition, but it's a good way to portion control that. My father always said, he hated, because when he was in the Marine Corps, you had to, there was an expression, you take what you eat and you eat what you take.
Yeah.
So if you get a plate, look at that. That's what your dinner is. Or, the plate with a bowl of carrots or, a salad, whatever it is take what you're going to eat and then eat what you take. And, and try to keep it simple on that level has always been a really good way. The problem is when you have little kids and they're like, I can't eat this, and you have a problem with waste, and give it to me, I'll eat it. Kids they can throw your calories up really quick. You're taking their pizza that they didn't want to eat, or,
Yeah. Even if it's leftover steak or chicken,
Yeah.
I'll do that. Now I don't have a problem with leftover broccoli and asparagus and salad and stuff like that. That is actually probably pretty good, and it's a little bit more filling. But anyway, that tends to be my problem. So I try to fight that with just eating a little slower. So we're in this battle, right? We're in this battle not to lose good habits, and we're in this battle to try to kick bad habits,
Yeah.
all the time, right? So you just have to remember that. You have to remember you got to be on. You got to have your A game going so you don't fall in and out of these good and bad habits.
Yeah. And another thing I see with bad habits often too is people use like these excuses of I deserve it. I did all this. And so and then they kind of like, they binge on it,
Yeah.
and that's, whether it's Oreos or pizza, or booze or whatever it is, it's that kind of justifying the negative habit or the bad habit, like, oh, I did this, or, oh, I had a crazy week at work. I need to, and I think a good way to break those kind of negative habits when that starts to creep in is kind of have some sort of, like in a way, like we talked about, a performance cue of like, whoa, wait a minute, that's supporting the negative habit. So what can I do? How can I change the negative habit? What can I throw into the mix? And just like you said, the days where, when I go down to the pool, it's very weird. I don't really remember my drive. I'm on like autopilot. And I know there's times where I stand on the edge of the pool a little bit longer, but just like you said, I know that I'm there. I start to think, well, I didn't drive 25 to 30 minutes to do a 5-minute workout. So that starts to help, push me into keeping that positive habit. So they're just like a performance cue. Is how are you going to frame it in your head?
That's a really good point. Yeah, I have a performance cue for several things, and one of them for swimming is when I see that we have a big wall clock, swimmer wall clock. When it hits the top, as soon as I get on the pool deck and I see where it is, I have a minute roughly or less until I have to jump in the pool.
Yep.
I don't think around, I don't sit around thinking and like dip my toe in, stuff like that, which can happen. It can delay your workout. It can shorten your workout. I've seen people just turn around and go back into the locker room, and say, I don't have it in me today. That happens. Right. So I tell you one thing though, there's an evolution to habits, right? And it all starts off with motivation, right? We are motivated at first, hardcore motivation. We're going to do it. It is today. I'm going to start my diet today. I'm going to start working out today. And you're really motivated to do that, right? But what happens is either you're going to do it or you're not. And you either get it or you don't. But eventually for that motivation to evolve it into a habit, it has to evolve into discipline.
Yeah.
Right. Motivation has to evolve into discipline, because there are days you might be motivated on Monday, but by Friday, you may not be motivated at all because you're sore for the last 3 days of working out and you just don't feel like you just have no energy. You didn't sleep well, whatever that is, you're new to this. It's real easy to, start a good habit, but it's real easy to fall off real quick if that motivation doesn't turn to discipline. Because I promise you, you're not going to be motivated 24/7, 7 days a week, 365. I'm not, right? And I work out, I don't know, 6 days a week, probably 600 plus hours, in a year. And, there's not every day that I am motivated to go. There are many days where I just say, I really wish I could stay in bed right now because I'm pretty beat. But, one thing that really helps me, and I think it helps everybody in our group, is that we have a group. If you have a group of people that are waiting for you at 6 a.m. to be somewhere, that's a big motivator. Or I guess it's not, I guess it is a motivator. When you don't have any motivation, that is sometimes all the motivation you need.
Yeah. And that goes back to your true team mindset, your leader and your team mindset. And, I think that a thing to think about with discipline is that we don't always, we don't, like, talking about being conscious, we give a lot of like stock and credence to when we're sick and feeling awful, when we have the flu, and
It's easy to make an excuse when you're sick. I don't feel so good.
Yeah. And
I did that today, actually. I didn't do yoga. I did mobility work today, but I didn't do yoga. And there's a yoga teacher there. And I said, I don't think I got it in me today. I'm just going to stretch and foam roll here because, head's congested. And I didn't feel like being all down dogged, and
yeah.
sniffling my nose in front of everybody. So anyway, but that was an excuse. I usually do yoga on Thursdays, but I pulled out and yeah.
Well, but we don't give stock to when we're feeling good.
Yeah.
Right? So we can feel good for a month. We can, and I love doing a workout and like being like, wow, my shoulder didn't hurt today. I actually, because I've had enough discomfort, with my shoulders and things like that, and work through, and with my elbow and all that, that I actually try to give stock when I'm feeling good, when I'm flowing right, when I'm moving.
Oh yeah.
Right, when
I
it's
definitely
good.
do that. You know what I notice? I notice there are days where I feel no pain.
Yes.
That's usually after my mobility days, to be quite honest with you, or after a good hard swim. Right. Yep. I may have run before, may have lifted before. I'm a little tight. Then I go swim at the end and I walk out of there and I feel no pain. And that's a good feeling, right? You got a really good point.
Yeah, that's, and I, again, having shoulder surgery and pec surgery and this and on, both shoulders done, there are days where you just kind of have to push through that, because there are days where you're like, no, this, but you also get that barometer of what's a tweak and what's a real injury, and you'll work through that. But, I did a dumb thing the other day, but it was great. I got a text from Drew he's over in the United Arab Emirates, and he's texting me his workouts about, doing bench press and all this sort of stuff. And, I'm like, wow, okay, I haven't done bench in a while. So I go in and I do a circuit with bench. I swear I thought my chest was going to fall off my body. And but it felt good. It was sore. And I go down and I swim. And there's another thing, is that if you have it in your workouts, you said a good hard swim. After I swim, it loosens me up. Swims are often that habit that's going to loosen me up from a new movement that I've done, or, if I slept on my shoulder wrong or whatever it is. And so sometimes those habits you can utilize to, help you recover and to get back on track from the habits that you might, the good habits you might not have been doing for a while, that you've
absolutely. And if you feel better, you're probably going to go do it again.
Yep.
That's the way things work. So,
yeah. So, and I think it's great too, how, the reflective process and, looking at that motivation, and how that starts to taper off, and how do you maintain the motivation and move it into discipline, I think is a great point for everybody to really kind of hold on to. Discipline is not that. It's not immediate. It's not. It doesn't pay its dividends immediately.
No, it takes habits to build discipline.
It
takes discipline to build habits.
Yeah, it's a long-term mindset, and training for really what is your purpose, and what is it exactly that you're striving for. With anything, there's people that can sit long hours at a computer, and that's a skill that I just don't have.
Yeah.
And, so there are varying degrees of that discipline. And, I think that, getting back to those good habits and recognizing, what habits, really are going to be impacted, if you can't do them, what, for the positive or the negative side of it.
You know what I like to do? I like to, there's a saying that I can't remember where I heard it from, but if it's not in the schedule, it doesn't exist. So I write a daily schedule of what I'm going to do. I know exactly, where I'm going to be, what I'm going to do. I have time in between to do other things. But I also write down what I'm not going to do at the bottom. Just a little asterisk. I say, I am not going to overeat. I am not going to run on this bad leg. I'm just going to, pull myself back, whatever that is. So try that, if you really need some tools to help you build some of these habits that you need, because if you're preparing for any of the tactical professions, especially on the spec ops level selection side, you really need to start building some good habits. And it's very likely you need to get rid of some bad habits. We all do. I mean, we
Yeah.
have strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes those strengths and weaknesses are what we do and what we don't do. So
Yeah. And I think that some habits that have been done for me, I spoke to you about this, that, my wife and kids were away, and, we had graduation here, and I get up in the morning, I got to walk the dog. I got to feed the dog. I got to make the coffee. I got to make the bed. I got to all these things. And so what I started to realize, and also I'm not getting the lunch ready so I started to realize all that I don't do.
yeah.
And all these things that are done for me. I mean, the dog, by the time I wake up in the morning, the dog's back asleep on the couch, right? Now, when my wife and kids are away, the dog's looking at me like,
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, it's your turn. And I think you have to recognize one of my quotes is that when the well runs dry, make sure you're able to go and get the water yourself. Right. So if the water's been provided for you and it's been given to you, are you able to then go and find the water yourself? And it's a metaphor for if
Sure.
there are a lot of things that are done for you, can you then do for yourself?
I love it.
And so, I realized I think that's why, like, when I emailed you or talked to you on the phone or whatever, I think that's where the habits thing came up, is like, okay, fine. But it's not even a negative habit. It's what's done for you. What is just done for you. And are you appreciating what's, there for you? And, what happens too, if you show up at the pool one day and all of a sudden the pool's contaminated and closed, right? Like, oh, wow. And then you start to realize, wow.
Yeah. What's plan B?
Yeah. Where can I go swim now?
Yeah.
So, and you go through those things. I think that's a helpful thing is making sure that you recognize what is done for you to give yourself a little bit more ability to adjust to doing some of the habits that are done for you. I think
Agree. I love it. So, hey, let's wrap this one up. I think we kind of hit it from all angles, because there's multiple angles where, habits need to grow from, good and bad, and need to be killed as well, depending on your goals, obviously. But if you guys got questions, post them, right? And if it's a specific habit, just, put it in the comment section, and we'll try to address them, over time as they come in. So thanks for listening. You have any final words there for habit, your closing remark?
Post questions, like comments, what you know about it. What are some of your, because that's where we learn, we there's all these books about habits, and
yes,
like, post stuff, because I don't know that much at all. I don't, and I learn from comments. I learn from you every time we talk. So if there's any questions or anything about habits, put it up there, post it.
Yeah, absolutely. So post it up there, post a question, post what you do to maintain your habits, post what you've done in the past to get rid of bad habits. How did you alleviate that? And you may see that it's a system that is very similar, right? You have to get rid of a bad habit in order to build a good habit, right? It almost is like this yin and yang going back and forth. So let us know. This would be a good little community discussion if you stayed on this long. I hope you have. So all right. So check us out. Instagram, Facebook. You can follow some of the other posts that we do. So, all right, guys. Thank you very much, Pat. This is another Tactical Fitness Report done on habits, good and bad. We'll see you.